off we go. Roughly about 45 miles an hour. Again, driving on surface streets. Good afternoon, I'm Philip Palmer, and we are starting our breaking news coverage of a police pursuit. You're looking live at an image from Air 7 HD on West Rosecrans. We believe this is in the Compton area. This driver failing to yield is what we've, for the most part, seen at this point. There's not been a lot of reckless driving, but we did see a pit maneuver by authorities in a circumstance very similar to what you're seeing here, where they pitted him and he just simply drove over the median in the grass and just kept going. There was no damage to his vehicle and he was able to continue on. So we've seen the driver with a balloon, it looks like, and possibly inhaling whatever is in that balloon, but we do not know if this person is under the influence, why they are failing to come to a stop. But this is a kind of environment where we're going to see how dangerous this pursuit gets. So far to this point, the driver has pretty much followed traffic laws, stopping at intersections, waiting to go at green lights, but just not pulling over for authorities. And again, they've tried one pit maneuver. We're going to see now what they're going to try. We've seen an officer jump out of the vehicle and start to approach the truck, but then the truck drove away. So now you see here, again, at the intersection with West Rosecrans Avenue, and I don't know what the cross street is. I can't really see the cross street on that one. But he's just sitting in the left turn lane, allowing for traffic to continue to go past. It's North Wilmington Avenue is our cross street there. So look at all of the officers around. He is not restricted in moving forward, which they wouldn't really want to do that. That would put officers at risk. But he is not getting out of the vehicle. So you can actually see again there the balloon in his hand, and looks to be up near his mouth. So we don't necessarily know what's going on there, but you can make your own assumptions. Again, we're watching to see if he will get out of the car and surrender to authorities, but right now they are not approaching him. The last time we saw this type of circumstance, again, the officer in that vehicle right there opened the door as if he was going to get out and approach, and then the driver just drove away. So we're now waiting to see what this pickup is going to do. We don't necessarily, there's no opportunity necessarily to do a pit maneuver at this point, but right now we are at a standstill as we're looking to see what happens with this person. From the other side, you could tell that the window was down. We can't really see anything other than the contents of the back of the pickup, which again look like tree stumps. I only bring that up in that there is some weight in the back of the pickup truck, which would give it some stability as he's driving if he were driving at high rates of speed. But he's not necessarily. He's just not pulling over. So now we see the pit. There's another pit in the intersection. If he follows suit, which he did, he's going to try to get away. And now he's made it dangerous driving into oncoming traffic. The officers are continuing to bump him and try to stop him, but now look, as he has moved on, you have a couple people standing outside taking their cell phone images of it, and this is almost exactly what happened a moment ago. They did the pit. There's a spike strip, and we'll see if that got the front tire. It did look like as if he got it under the driver's side front wheel, and if it did, we'll see that tire start to disintegrate, and the driver will lose at least some control of that vehicle. But they might have missed him. And we'll see. He's going about 45 miles an hour, 41 miles an hour, so that is not excessive when you talk about this area. But he, again, has eluded authorities as they did a pit maneuver. But I was surprised at how many officers were there. And as I look at it, I can't really tell, but it does seem as if the front end is sitting a little lower. I could be wrong there. We're trying with Air 7 to get a picture, but no, from my perspective, it does look as if the tire is intact. So maybe they did not get him. Now we've got somebody. No, okay, so the officers, again, there are plenty of officers behind. It was LA County Sheriff that we saw. And so here they are again at an intersection, and you see an abundance of officers there. But the driver doesn't dangerously enter the intersection, and that has been a consistent behavior on this person's part. The only thing that we've seen them do is 2 pit maneuvers, and at neither time did the person stop. They just drove across the median and started heading in the other direction. And so now here we are with sheriffs again, this on Rosecrans now at North Acacia Avenue. And the driver continues to not yield. And there it is again. You can see another shot with the balloon for this suspect, which now we're about to see another pit maneuver. And there is another one. And we'll see if the sheriffs change tactics at all to try to pin him in a little bit more. But with the pickup truck, he's going to have a little bit more of an opportunity to go over those medians, and he's done it again. Now he's going into officers. This is where it begins to get dangerous for other people, because even though he's going at slow rates of speed, he is just not stopping, and he's going into traffic. So now we've gotten off of Rosecrans, and we are on a side street here at about 25 miles an hour. No word on if there was any damage to the undercarriage having gone over that curb and the median, because you can hit the undercarriage pretty hard on that curb and cause some damage. But to this point, this does not look like there's any damage to the vehicle, and the person is now going to continue on. Again, at a stop sign, checking both directions, and then slowly driving away. But somehow he's now eluded authorities in 3 pit maneuvers where they have not been able to get him to stop. But again, here we are, not riskily blowing through a stop sign, but just moving on through. So now we have an officer approaching from a different direction. And again, this is now West Elm Street, turning off West Elm. Again, West Elm and Acacia, it looks as if so. But you do have the risk now that you're in this part of this type of driving, that there could be bystanders that come out into the street, might not realize there's a chase underway, could step out and put themselves in harm's way. So officers are going to have to take that into consideration. You see this person, that is an officer. We have an officer there, and there is a spike strip that he is driving right over. So that, we have no doubt that he hit the spike strip that time. So that's going to disable the front tires of this truck, and you can see the thread, the string, the rope there behind, so it's still underneath his vehicle. And we're going to see how long that is going to be able to, he's going to be able to continue driving with that less than lethal opportunity to stop it. I couldn't even tell. Now, Giovanna Lara is joining us now, but you couldn't even really tell if that was a spike strip or if it was something else,
some other
that
tool.
they threw, another device that they threw under the vehicle, because it didn't look like the spike strip.
No, it sure did not. But I've been watching and listening to you for the last 10 minutes or so. This guy is determined to get away at slow speeds, as we are seeing. And was it 3 pit maneuvers that they attempted?
At this point, yeah, there've been 3. And again, you see the people on the sidewalk. So driving in this neighborhood puts folks that are just minding their own business at risk, regardless of how reckless or safe he's driving.
And what was remarkable, that there were so many police cars there, and he just weaved his way right through them. I was expecting some of the officers to be a little bit more aggressive and get in his way, but without knowing if he is armed, I guess that would be a reason why they wouldn't want to completely encircle him.
Well, at those points, you're not wanting to put officers at risk, because,
exactly.
To this point, he's not driven recklessly. He just refuses to stop. And we have been told that it was indeed a spike strip that they put under there. There was a doubt between the two of us. It just didn't look like a standard spike strip. But to the right, you see the videotape of what this person has done previously. So it's this fine balance for officers to try to stop him from moving forward without putting officers at risk. So they're not going to really block him in if he can get any kind of movement going forward. They're going to, if they can get him so that he can't get going fast and cause them pain, then maybe they might try to box him in. But that's the spot there on the right is when I thought he might damage the undercarriage of the truck, possibly break the axle by driving over in such a manner of those curbs. But he hasn't, and he's just been able to continue to drive. Now we see on the left, they've opened their doors. So unfortunately, we can't see why he has stopped. But it could be due to damage from the spike strip. Now there he goes again.
Yeah, and he's continuing. And if you're just joining us, this is happening in Compton. You see the driver of this pickup truck evading police after three pit maneuvers and one attempt at a spike strip. And this guy is still going. And as you can see, there's a balloon in his hand. We think it's a balloon, looks like a balloon. And it seems like he is inhaling something.
And that would be the helium. Possibly helium.
Yes.
any number of things. This was we don't understand exactly why he's trying to get away from authorities. At one point, they did go into a surveillance mode. They were just kind of watching him. Generally, he's been in light traffic, but this again is the kind of similar thing. So now there's nowhere to go. He is potentially on a bike path, it looks like, and is now. He's now pinned in. He can't go forward. Officers are not at risk. And look at the number of officers behind him. The big risk, I would think, at this point is that this person might try to get onto the bike path and potentially try to drive on the bike path. Yeah. That would be something that authorities don't want. And because if you're on the bike path, there's quite literally nowhere to go if you're a cyclist and you see a truck coming at you. So they certainly don't want him going forward, but that's kind of his choice at this point. Yeah.
And you see the law enforcement officers behind him. They've all exited their cars. They're all holding weapons. Again, we don't know what the initial want for this pursuit was, and we don't know if they know whether he is armed and dangerous. And this guy seems to be continuing holding on to that balloon, which is a little funny to me.
Well, the balloon has deflated and inflated. Yes. So my assumption is that he is inhaling whatever it is he's putting into the balloon, which would suggest, and I can't say this for sure, but it suggests that he's under the influence and would be acting irrationally. Now you've got a dog that's right there in front of the vehicle. So again, you wouldn't want that to get in the way. You certainly don't want to put the dog at risk there, but right. You just worry about the bike path. You see officers here. So they are going to try to keep him from heading that direction. The concern I would have is if he were to turn right. That seems to be the direction that his vehicle is pointed, and if he somehow got onto that bike path, hopefully he will not make that choice.
Yeah, and my understanding is we picked this up at about 12:40. May have been going on a little longer than that, but that is the information we have so far. So we've been following it, the last 15, 20 minutes or so, and he's remained in Compton for the most part.
Yes, and he still is in Compton. If you're trying to identify this part of town, you're seeing at West Poplar Street. And at this point, it almost seems as if it is a standoff where now he's either rolling down his window or up. I can't really tell if the window is open, but you could see him moving his arm there, trying to roll down the window. And then, so now this is the difficult thing for officers too, because as he leans across the cab of that truck, they don't know what he might be grabbing. He could be reaching into the glove compartment. He could be reaching under the chair or under the seat. So they just don't know, and you really don't want to see him continuing to take his hands out of his. No, he is. Watch. Okay, he's just filled up the balloon again.
Yes. So he must have a helium tank.
I would assume. That's an assumption that is not unreasonable given at this point. So.
Yes. Yeah, so you just wonder what his state of mind is right now. And I have a question about, is that wood in the cab of the truck?
It looks as if it's tree stumps, that possibly there was some stump removal. Now let's see what they do if they're going to, so clearly he can't go backwards now. Mm-hmm. So they're setting it up so he can't go backwards. The question for me, again, continues to be, can he go to the right? To the left, it's going to be difficult because of the angle of his vehicle.
Right.
He's not going to be able to make that. The wheel turn is not going to allow him to do that, turning radius. But he can make that right turn, our left. And if he turns to the right, he could end up on the bike path. Yeah. But there could be, and I can't really tell from Air 7, if there's something blocking him to keep him from going that way.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, that the gates there, it doesn't seem like a very wide opening. In that space, wider. It's not as wide as the left, but either way, he's not. Oh, something just happened.
They might be shooting less than lethal in there, tear gas.
Yeah,
there could be tear gas. Yeah, that's what it is.
Yep.
So they have fired tear gas, and now you see him with his hands possibly. Well, he still has his. It looked to me as helium there. You see the little container.
The window is down. It appears. It looks like he's communicating with them.
They have shot pepper balls into the cab of the truck, which if you've ever been around that pepper spray, that is an unpleasant experience.
Although he doesn't seem to be reacting.
But he's got the window down, and so if he's wanting fresh air, he's just poking his head out the window. And again, if that is helium and he has inhaled as much as we've watched, he's certainly not in his right mind. And so now it looks as if he is yelling at sheriff's deputies who, off screen to our right, his left, you could see the officers just beyond our frame here on that bike path. They might have moved from there, but that's where there were a couple of officers. There they are. So they're actually moving back. He may have yelled at them to the point that they want to reduce the conflict. They want to decrease the tension. So maybe they did want to move it.
De-escalate. Oh, and this is a good view of him.
You can see him rubbing his eyes.
Yeah.
So yes, he has taken a heavy amount of pepper spray. They fired it in. Now, okay, they're asking him to start removing things. So hopefully that's probably what they're asking him to do. I'm not sure what it is that he tossed, but now they're going to try to get him out of the vehicle. But this is not the way. They're firing more pepper spray in. Can you see it? You can see the pepper spray exploding there in the cab of the truck.
Is it going through the windshield?
They're probably shooting it through the back windshield. And
if it's open?
Well, in most pickup trucks, there's that window that's just behind the driver. So if he's driving with that open, they could fire it in.
Right.
But they could also probably, depending on, usually those pepper balls break on contact. So I can't imagine without a window open, they would be able to get it in there.
Yeah.
But clearly we saw it go in.
Okay. He was pointing at them, it looks like. I thought it was a good sign that he threw whatever he threw out the window. I thought that was a good sign that he is complying, but there's still some negotiation underway.
It looks as if he's complaining that they hit him in the arm. He showed them his forearm, and he's clearly talking to them, yelling at them, and it is, obviously he is still upset at some level. Has he now rolled up the window?
He's reaching for something.
He rolled the window back up, which of course is not what you want to see. That is you had hoped, and we did, that he was starting his compliance. But now he's rolled the windows up, and he's getting more pepper spray. Yeah. So at some point, you wonder if they might go with tear gas, something that might even be, more of it to just almost fill the whole cab. Yeah. But the pepper spray is pretty bad. I'm surprised that he is able to stay in there and handle whatever they have done.
Well, time is on the side of law enforcement. They can take their time with this. There's no rush. It doesn't seem that anyone is in danger in the neighborhood. I wonder if they have made any efforts to evacuate some of the homes on either side of this street. Hard to know.
Well, the one, my concern was for the bike path, and you mentioned he might not be able to get on it. But the good news is he's been here long enough that officers, sheriff's deputies, would have been able to secure that bike path. So if he were to turn right, even if he could, my assumption is that they will have secured that. Nobody's going to be coming down either direction of that bike path. So to your point about people being safe, I think that the bike path, because that is really the only place to go, those areas have been cordoned off, and nobody's going to be coming back and forth on that bike path. But at this point, like you said, they can potentially sit here and wait as long as needed. The community is, for the most part, not at risk because he's stuck in this location. He's pinned himself in. And so as they just continue to pepper him with pepper balls, we'll just kind of wait and see what he's doing. He's very nonchalant about his behavior, including when he was driving. Yeah, and we're not seeing the balloon anymore, but it seems like did he just put something in his mouth? Hard to see. Hard to know from this. And they're shooting more in there. You can see every time. You can really tell when they are filling that cab with the pepper balls because. Oh, now the window's down. See, he's opening the window, I think, to let the pepper spray out. He rolled it down, And so, who knows if maybe they fired, rubber bullets to break the glass. We can't really see what what his window behind him looks like. We don't know if it's broken or if he's got an open window. I would assume if it was an open window and they were shooting pepper balls through it, he could have closed it. So I wonder if he's talking to someone at this point on the phone. Looks to be smoking.
Or smoking. That's
No,
what
he's
doing.
yeah, now he has gotten a cigarette. So again, we did watch him inhaling something from a balloon, which you can assume, I think, reasonably, that it was helium because we watched him with a canister of some sort fill a balloon. We've now recued some video there on the right side of the screen about what he was doing. He was just not stopping, and for a while they went into surveillance mode. It wasn't as if he was recklessly driving through town. In fact, we saw him stop at stop signs, we saw him stop at stoplights, and 3 different times he tried a pit maneuver, and he was able to just continue on. And these we've seen now 2, and then you see this one. Each time he had almost come to a stop and then just drove away and would not stop, much like this.
Right here. This is the one that I was looking at earlier. I was so surprised that he just made his way through those patrol vehicles and that last patrol vehicle getting out of his way. They must know something that that we don't know about. He may be armed. We don't know. Again, there's a lot we don't know about this suspect.
Well, now he seems to be communicating again with the officers, which to this point, officers continue to use less than lethal force. They have used pepper balls, fired them into the cab, which has not seemed to bother him too much. He's either smoking or vaping at this point. We don't know really what that is. And going back to the beginning of this chase, we don't know what he was wanted for. So all we've really seen is clearly failure to yield. And if you want to add in, he drove his vehicle right at officers. So that could be an additional charge of potentially harming an officer. But, you know, mostly it's not been the chase that put people at risk. It was just this to the right, what you see, where there was one time when he drove into traffic.
Right. Well, this right here that you're seeing on the right of your screen, that is clearly dangerous. And he's, you know, obviously not wanting to let those officers take custody of him. So he's evading for some reason. We just don't know what it is. And on the left, you see the live pictures. This is, again, happening in Compton on West Poplar Street and North Wilmington Avenue at what appears to be a dead end. And it looks like the river is right below the picture that we're looking at. And there's a bike path there. And you see the officers congregating, just a couple of them, with their weapons aimed at the suspect and the vehicle. Again, we don't know what led up to all of this.
I have a friend who clearly knows more than I that was saying that recreational users usually use quarter-ounce containers of nitrous oxide, whippets, which they use to fill the balloons. Or they sometimes use whipped cream dispensers. The gas is inhaled from the balloon or the dispenser. So that's very possibly what's been happening here. So thank you for sending that to us. But you're looking now at much without, they say now they've got to just toss the tear gas right in.
Yeah, they sure did.
And we're also getting more nitrous oxide is usually what people huff when they're using the balloons. That comes from one of our executive producers.
That could be one of the reasons they were stopping him. Maybe someone saw him with the balloon and they thought that that was enough of a reason to try to get him to stop.
Or if he was under the influence already and driving erratically. There's so many reasons why at this point it's just he's clearly now seeing some of the consequences of the pepper spray, because you can see, and it can make you physically ill as well. I mean, I would not be surprised if he throws up.
Yeah, he's using his T-shirt to sort of wipe his eyes. At least that's what it looked like to me a moment ago. He does seem to be, well, he's still smoking, but yeah, he seems in a little bit of distress.
Well,
but he's still smoking.
And the officers clearly, it does seem as if they don't think he's armed, in the fact that they approached the vehicle so closely that they were willing to throw a canister right into the cab. And at some point, that's going to win out. You know, I can't imagine anyone. See, okay, now he's wiping it as much as he can from his face, which doesn't really help that much.
Yeah. Doesn't it make it worse?
It kind of makes it worse. I mean, you almost need to just have it washed off. But he just is not affected, not completely about what's going on. I mean,
He's not
casually he
motivated.
watches his face. No,
he's not motivated to get out.
And so we're able to put the spotlight, which zooms us in a little bit, but he is in some distress. This is not pleasant for him at this point. You can tell by sticking his head out the window. He's trying to get out of some of it.
I think he's talking to them.
Oh, yeah.
He's definitely
well, you can see on the
them.
dash some of the pepper spray, I believe, the dashboard, the white substance there. That if he gets that on his hands, that too can, then you're wiping your face and you're making it. That's when you're talking about making it worse.
Right.
And if he's using his shirt to wipe it, if he's got any of that on his shirt, and so now he wipes his face with his shirt, he's just going to be making it worse. And at some point, I would think the pepper spray is going to override whatever he has been inhaling. And that looks
like he's vaping.
It looks more like a vape now,
it is
a vape canister, a pen of some sort.
So we don't know what's in the vape.
No.
Yeah.
It could be any number of things, but clearly, and thanks to the folks that have helped us out with what he was possibly inhaling was possibly nitrous oxide. Again, we don't want to make any assumptions as to what's going on, although we saw him with the balloon, saw him refill it, and here we go again. It does look as if they have another one in their hand, which they will let go. See if he tries to throw it out or if he just allows it to come in there. Now, okay.
Wow,
see, and that's interesting. So they throw it in there, and he can't get it out because
now he's reacting.
See, he tries to get it out, and they fire those pepper balls in there to keep him away from it so that they get the benefit of the gas going into the vehicle.
Now he's trying to get some clean air. Or maybe he's ready to surrender?
He does have his hands up, but that is not how they want him to surrender. He's going to have to follow their commands before they are going to change anything that they're doing. He's going to have to open it up and back up to them. They are not going to let him say, stop shooting.
Right. And now we can say that he was wanted for reckless driving. That has been confirmed. So that is why they were trying to stop him initially.
And if he was also under the influence, you can see why. Because, here we go again. So let's see what they're going to do. Because they do have less than lethal, you can see in their hands.
Okay, he's not ready to come out because he just put the window up and then back down. As they approached, he put the window back up. And when they backed off, he lowered it again. What is he trying to do? It seems like he's trying to say, I give up, but I don't know.
Yeah, but if he's under the influence, and he may be saying all of the things, but he's clearly not physically doing what they're asking him to do.
I think they're asking him to open the door.
And it does look as if he's got his hand on the door, so we'll see if he does that. But he is in a no-win situation. But he's going to continue to suffer from this pepper spray and this tear gas until he comes out of that vehicle, because you can see it. It is all over the inside of that cab, and there is nothing he can touch in that cab that is not covered with either pepper spray or whatever remnants of the tear gas are in there, including the shirt that he continues to wipe his face with. And he's got something in his left hand. Oh, that's the vape. That's the vape that he's got in his left. I thought maybe he had picked up one of those tear gas elements that they threw in. But we don't know, other than the reckless driving that Giovanna mentioned, we don't necessarily know if there's anything else. If this, but we do see the tree stumps in the back of the pickup truck. And so basically it was a reckless driving suspect. And again, sheriff's deputies pulled back into a surveillance mode for a moment. And then they resumed the chase. And now here we are at this West Poplar Street access to a bike path there in Compton. And so now, until they can find a way to get him out of there, it's just going to be this.
Yep. Waiting. They're trying to persuade him, and he is not going to go easily, apparently.
Well,
I just wonder what he's trying to negotiate.
You can see when he points at officers, and you can see that it seems to me to be loudly either yelling at them or talking at them, and they're going to try to de-escalate. And look at the one sheriff kind of waving his hand in front of his face. I would assume they can even smell some of that pepper spray if any of it blows in their direction.
Yeah, at the top of the screen, I saw the two officers who are armed take a few steps back. and now they're lowering their weapons. Maybe the suspect is saying, I'm not getting out. I mean, this is all speculation, but maybe he's saying, you know, this is making me nervous. I'm not getting out till.
Well, they will back up if he, you know, if he in some manner yells at them and says, you guys get back. They will cede some territory, but not enough to let him move. I mean, they're wanting him to come out of the vehicle, and if it begins to agitate him, they might, because as you mentioned, Giovanna, time is on their side, especially when you start thinking about the community. People living near there, right next to it, are impacted. But where he is not going to impact very many people. He's not driving on streets, putting children at risk as they leave for school. He's not putting pedestrians at risk. It is just this one part. And even look, right across the street, you have sheriff's deputies across the street. Should he somehow jump out and try to run across that bridge, he is pinned in. So they can stay there as long as they want and wait for him to come out.
Yeah, wiping his face again. That must be very unpleasant to be in that cab.
Well, we have seen, I think, 2 tear gas canisters go in and countless pepper balls go in. So that is as much any reason why he's hanging his head out of the window, is because in the cab of that truck, it must be incredibly unpleasant.
Yeah, and he continues to vape.
So now they are looking, and it looks like a couple of the officers have gas masks on. So they could possibly go up to him to remove him from there. And they might start with more tear gas, more pepper spray, and they'd want to make sure that they're not facing the consequences of that. But we've seen multiple. This is one thing that about less than lethal. It's not always something that stops people. I have watched people peppered many times with rubber balls or anything, and sometimes they don't stop. And if they're under the influence. So here we go again. As officers begin to approach, you see several of them with the masks on. We saw another couple of rounds here. They might even use pellets to pop him in the arm.
What is this officer? It looks like he is firing.
Well, paintballs, a version of a paintball can be very painful for someone if they're shooting him with them. So let's see what he does here as he goes. They could break the window if they chose to. Let's see what he is going to do here now. And I can't tell if he's starting to try to back up. So they're going to pull back now because, again, you don't want to put officers at risk, but he's not going to back that truck up anywhere. Look at the tires. Though. So he will start to smoke those tires out, which could cause a fire of his tires as well. This is incredibly
look at this. Smoke.
Unhinged behavior.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that will really heat up. So he should be careful himself. Yeah. But again, to say he's not in his right mind would be very possibly, I think, something. Yeah, I think that's a reasonable thing to say.
Definitely under the influence of something.
Yeah, and he's behaving incredibly erratically now, and it's simply he just doesn't want to get out. So you could look in the back. They removed the
spike strip.
The spike strip, so another officer could get behind that vehicle and add just a little bit more in the event that was necessary. But that's the thing about a pickup truck as well. So there's no weight right now other than those tree stumps in the back of that vehicle. So you're not getting the traction in the back of that pickup that you might get in a car or a heavier vehicle that's got some weight over those spinning tires. So there's not much in the way of weight given how much a pickup can hold. Maybe that's a half ton, but he's not going to move that truck or those SUVs with that truck, even if the second vehicle wasn't there.
Honestly, I'm surprised he's not out of the truck and trying to make his way across that bridge. Because why?
Very true, but if he gets out,
I mean, we don't want that.
If he gets out and he's not armed, he's going down very quickly, but he might not be able to run. Yeah. He might not be able to walk clearly, given what we've watched him do as far as inhaling. So, right now, this is where the officers don't want to put themselves at risk. anymore, because if you go in front of the vehicle as an officer to approach that direction, you could be seriously hurt, because there's enough room for him to go forward, but he's going to go over that fence, and you just don't want to. You don't want that to happen. You don't want to put any officers at risk. So I just keep trying to see if he can turn right, and I can't tell that he can.
Yeah. And again, it's 1:30. If you're just joining us, looking for regular programming, we are following breaking news in Compton. This is happening. This is the end of a police pursuit on West Poplar Street and Wilmington, again, in Compton. And you see law enforcement, we believe sheriff's vehicles there, and sheriff's deputies trying to get this suspect to surrender. We understand that they tried to stop him right around 12:30, maybe before then, for reckless driving in the Compton area, and they followed him for a while. Did you say that they pulled off the pursuit?
Early on, they went into surveillance mode, but they never just walked him away. But they just shot more pepper balls into the cab of the truck. So they have continued and continued and continued to try to get him to come out of there.
And what you're watching is the end of an effort, a pretty aggressive effort to get him to stop. 3 pit maneuvers and 2 spike strips that I can count.
And 2 tear gas canisters at least, multiple rounds of pepper spray that have gone into the cab of the vehicle. And he continues to, he tossed something else out of the vehicle. It could have been whatever he was vaping. Couldn't really tell that. It looks that little white thing that you see there next to whatever that canister was possibly that he tossed. But at least at this point, he has stopped his effort to back up. You can see the skid marks there in front of the vehicle where he backed up and left a little bit of the rubber on the street. But again, he's not really a threat to anybody in the community. He is completely surrounded. But if you are wondering what's going on there in Compton, you can see that he is completely surrounded by officers, and he continues to yell at them as he hangs out the window, but he will not get out of the vehicle. If he keeps leaning over, he might fall out of his own, and if he does, I think the officers would swarm him fairly quickly. But he continues to hang out, and when I say hang out, I mean
hang out of the window.
Quite literally hanging out of the window.
Hanging out of the window because it's likely very uncomfortable in the cab because of the tear gas.
We've spotlighted the two. That's 2 different things that he has tossed out of the vehicle right there. That little white piece is the most recent thing. It almost looks like a pack of cigarettes. We don't believe that's what it was because it looked like that was what he was inhaling. Then we had something else that, from our perspective, it kind of looked like a canister of some sort. And we did see him inhaling something from a balloon. So we know that it is very likely he's under the influence. And for these officers, they have to take that into account, too, because he is going to continue to behave erratically. And, again, there's no reason for anyone, any bystanders or any officers or even the suspect to get hurt in this if by simply waiting for him to become more reasonable, however that happens. That is what everybody would probably prefer.
He doesn't seem to be in a hurry either. He must think he seems to be the most patient.
Well, again, if he is under the influence, I don't know that he has a massive grasp of time lapse. So he, could just be in his own space right now, and in his mind, it could just be, these people are bothering me. But he's not. He has something to inhale again. There we go again. So he hasn't thrown away whatever it was that he was using, or maybe he has another one. It does look like we're getting word that a second patrol car behind the suspect vehicle actually ran over their own spike strip. So they might have actually flattened their own tire. We saw them try to pull it away.
I thought they moved the spike strip.
Well, but not before they ran over it. So it does look as if that front tire is starting to lose air. So as they tried to pull it away, but remember that they did that when he was trying to push that SUV back. So they were simply trying to keep him from going anywhere. But it will delay the cleanup of this space because you'll have to change the tire and get the vehicle out of the way.
Right. And to your right, I don't know if we can re-rack that video of the deputies approaching the pickup truck. They've approached the pickup truck several times, a couple of times to drop more tear gas, right? That's what we're assuming? And then now you're looking at his effort to drive out and push, get out of the area. He's trying to back out.
And you see on the left, he's now doing it again. So that's live on the left, and it was tape on the right. And so he was once again trying to back up a little bit. And see, that's one of the problems we have. We can't tell that the engine's still running, but they can. So they know that the vehicle is still running. For a moment there, I kind of thought he had just put it in park and turned it off, but clearly he hasn't, and you can see it there right now.
There it goes again.
And it's so nonchalant the way he's doing it, so that.
I wonder if he even knows that he has his foot on
I think he at least at some level he knows, but I do think that it's interesting. It's hard for us because we can't hear the conversations. The officers there, they know more about his demeanor. They know more about his language. They know more about his approach to them because they're talking to him. They have established the communication, which is a good thing. And with any luck, they will be able to convince him to just go ahead and get out.
Yeah, and I wonder if, as we are taking a closer look at what's happening, if we backed out, if Air 7 could back out, we could see if maybe they're reinforcing the other side of the wash with more patrol units.
They sure. Yeah. Well, they're certainly blocking traffic.
Yeah. Because this is a residential area on both sides, and that is always a concern. Although there doesn't appear to be any danger to people living there. But when bullets start to fly, you just never know.
Well, we did see there was one officer there that is right next to that van, and it looks as if I believe he has either a pepper ball gun or a paintball gun. See the canister there on top? That's kind of paintball. It's probably pepper balls, but that's a canister that will feed the air rifle.
Mm-hmm.
Now he was waving at the people, I believe, across the wash to have them move. My assumption is because if an officer is over there, right at this point we have not seen shots fired. We've seen less than lethal action, but you don't want any officers in any potential line of fire. So it seemed as if he was kind of waving somebody off, maybe if they were over there by the wash, like you were saying.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can put a lot of pepper balls in that canister that's there on top of that, and they have multiple officers with those pepper balls surrounding this vehicle. So if they want to continue to use it, they can, but it doesn't seem as if it's been very effective as far as meeting their goal of getting him out of there.
Yeah, and I don't know if you have the answer to this question, or if one of our experts here at the station will know the answer to this, but one of the police officers is holding a rifle that has what I think is yellow. It's a yellow rifle.
Those are generally used to identify. Well, they're usually to identify less than lethal.
Ah, okay.
So anything with the tape, sometimes it's orange, sometimes it's red, sometimes it's yellow. But you want to be able to identify what kind of weapon you're lifting up. There's a perfect example right there.
Yeah.
Now they can be any range of less than lethal force, and sometimes you'll have tasers, pepper balls, rubber bullets. And there he goes with the tires again. So you have any number, but it is generally a describer of less than lethal weapons.
Yeah. And just a moment ago, we saw him once again try to, put his foot on the pedal and get the gas going and try to back out of that where he is right now.
And the odd behavior is he continues to talk. The odd behavior is he continues to talk to them even as he does this. A couple of times we've seen this. As they approach, if he starts to move, they've generally backed off. So here they go. They're putting a lot in there on him, and he's still got that canister. See the canister that he has?
Oh, he picked it up and threw it.
Well, but look in his hands right now. That is a massive canister of something.
He just threw it out.
Yeah, he threw the tear gas out, which I think is why they fire the pepper balls in there. They throw the pepper balls at him so that pepper balls, rubber bullets.
And what is he inhaling from the?
Maybe directly from the canister, but that is a huge canister that he's got there now.
Canister.
That goes a little beyond.
I see it, yes.
That goes a little beyond the nitrous oxide, the whipped cream kind of canisters that we were talking about a minute ago. But who knows what it is? But yeah, what they're doing, it seems, is they approach with tear gas that will really make breathing in the cab difficult. And the way they keep him from grabbing and throwing it out, which we saw, is to fire a lot of less than lethal rounds in there, whether those are rubber bullets or pepper balls or whatever they might be, because then he's less likely to reach over and grab it.
Right.
But he has continued to be more than capable of fighting off their rounds and grabbing the canister and throwing it aside.
That was the first time I saw him do that. Did you see that earlier?
I think he might be getting it out somehow. Maybe they're on the other window or maybe into the cab. But when you get one of those tear gas canisters within a cab that space, we'll see it. We would see it from here. It would completely fill up the vehicle for a period of time until it started to kind of go out the windows. Mm-hmm. So he's been able to get it out of there somehow. And again, he threw it out just now.
And again, this suspect wanted for reckless driving in the Compton area, and that's what started this pursuit that has now run into about an hour, if we are following the clock correctly, accurately. And again, this is still in the Compton area, a residential area, and you see the suspect surrounded by sheriff's deputies who are outside of their vehicles and armed with less than lethal weapons, and they've fired several rounds of pepper spray, tear gas. Is that correct?
Yes.
We think. We're getting information from our assignment desk. And we're still trying to get more information about the situation here. And as soon as we get more details, of course, we'll share it with you. But right to the right of your screen, you're looking at video from just a few minutes ago when deputies approached the pickup and threw some tear gas, we believe a canister in the back cab of that pickup truck. That was from several minutes ago. And then maybe, 5 minutes ago, we saw them do it again, drop tear gas into the actual, where the driver is. And he picked it up and threw it outside and towards the wash.
And there's the possibility they might have disabled the truck by using, when they approached, they might have jammed something in the wheel well there, so he can't go forward. He might not be able to go forward, and that might be what we're looking at there to the left. It's very possible he can't go forward. Well, it's a spike strip, but it might have been something that we were talking about earlier, where it just disables the vehicle from continuing going. But notice he hasn't tried to go forward at all, only backwards. So it does appear as if they've disabled the vehicle, which again goes back to your point of the time is on officer side. He's not going anywhere. They know he can't go forward. And that's good news, because we didn't want him on the bike path. We didn't want him making a turn. And so now here he is, and he continues to face down the rubber bullets and the pepper spray and the tear gas that has been filling up that cab. And again, you can see it on the dashboard. We've talked about it, and it's significantly worse now than it was the first time we mentioned it. Look at all of the white substance that's on the dash.
Yep.
And all of that is pepper spray, tear gas, anything that they can get to try to get him out of there.
Yeah. And the reason we are seeing him exit through the window, or have the upper part of his body outside the window, is because it must be so difficult to be in there.
And there come more. See, look, they have several angles to get that in there now. They can go in the passenger side window, which is likely broken, and they have just been putting rounds into that cab. But it doesn't seem like the pepper spray balls are working that much. They're making him uncomfortable, but it doesn't seem to fill up.
What is he inhaling? Is that also
straight from the can?
Yeah, straight from the can. It does look like that.
And it is.
And he had the vape on his left hand before.
And you wouldn't want to. Yeah, the inconsistencies of behavior for this guy just makes it, really a situation where the officers are going to want to wait. They're just going to want to wait and make sure that they can safely get him out of there. There he goes, inhaling again, which, by the way, if you think about the discomfort in the cab, he may be doing that because that is his source of trying to comfort himself in some weird way. Maybe that lessens the, if he is under the influence further, maybe if the pepper spray and all of the other less than lethal efforts don't affect him as much. Who knows?
Right. And then there is the mental health factor
For
that
sure.
we haven't really discussed, but we don't know what his mental health status is right now and what his history has been, so that might be playing a role in this. I do have a programming note. If you have tuned in to watch Tamron Hall, you can watch today's program at 1:06 a.m.
And that will be here on ABC7. We have been, I'm Philip Palmer along with Giovanna Lara, and we have been covering this breaking news for a little over an hour now. It was a chase for some time as officers were trying to pull this person over for reckless driving. I'm seeing a new person here with the hat and the shirt walking up. He might be a negotiator of some point. He looks a little different than anybody we have seen, and they kind of made way to let him come forward. I do not know if he is a hostage negotiator, but that could be an effort that they're having, just one more different voice that is going to try to reach this man in some way to get him to come out. Again, the driving of this person during the pursuit was never really high speeds. He wasn't really disobeying a lot of traffic laws, but it was dangerous at several times when the pit maneuver was used and he had to drive into oncoming traffic at some time. He has gone through an intersection like this, and if you'll watch there on the right, you'll see him as he just simply drove away into the line of the officers, and then watch as he goes over that median and then back into traffic the other way. So to say it's not dangerous is not true. I'm just trying to distinguish between chases we have seen recently where the mere chase was a risk and scary to the general population. This person, when he was driving, seemed for the most part to obey most of the traffic laws. We watched him come to intersections, come to a full and complete stop. We watched him sit through traffic lights until he was given the arrow, and then he just drove away, and he just never would yield to officers, which is exactly what he's been doing as he sits at that bike path, unable to go forward.
Right, and that is, you're describing everything that we saw once Air 7 was on it, but before that, when the pursuit was already underway, officers were trying to stop him because of reckless driving. And it might have been, similar to what we've seen, but we don't have any reports of him, to your point, driving erratically.
What you're talking about right there is perfect. I mean, he wasn't safe. That's for sure.
That's for sure.
He was not a safe driver at any level. And yeah, there are any number of ways of driving recklessly. But just as a descriptor of this chase, it was unusual in that you could have been sitting at a stoplight next to this person and not known that he was involved in a chase.
Right.
Because he was just sitting there waiting on the light along with everybody else.
That's right. And it does look like this guy, this man that we saw walk up in the black T-shirt and the hat, it does, well, for a while there, it looked like he was talking to him, maybe trying to reason with him. Mm-hmm. As you said. Well, and now he doesn't even seem to be looking at him.
He appears, again,
maybe he's
not armed. If you notice, everyone else has some version of weapon. He is the one person who's not armed,
right?
At least not holding a weapon. So my assumption is that, yeah, he is a negotiator of some sort, trying to just de-escalate this,
right.
Convince this person to come out of the vehicle.
Yeah, and the driver is now reaching for something. He's holding on to something. It could be that.
Looked like a box of some sort.
Yeah. It didn't look like the tank that he was.
No, it looked like a silver box of some sort. But this is, again, that's pretty amazing what he's doing there.
And what's in his mouth now? Something's in his mouth. Oh, that's.
Again, his vape cartridge, possibly. And as you mentioned, we don't know what he's vaping necessarily. There's so much we don't know at this point. But the good news is it doesn't appear as if he's armed. You have to operate from the assumption that he is, because he has been willing to use his vehicle to damage and run into things. So that in itself is a weapon. But again, he is refusing to surrender to authorities as they continue to try to get him out of this vehicle, sitting there on that bike path in Compton.
Yeah, and it does look like the man we believe is a crisis negotiator is still talking to him. His hands in his pocket. He is gesturing with his hands. So it does look like there's some communication underway. And we hope that this will end sooner rather than later. Yeah.
So again, I mean, we don't necessarily know the protocols for this negotiator, how long he will be able to just continue to talk to him. But it's almost as if this person is just, with the power of this high, that he is able to. I mean, it is incredible the pull that can. I mean, think about what he's looking at, and he continues to want to go back to inhaling from that canister. So clearly he is painfully unaware of his surroundings and what's going on due to whatever he is inhaling. And the officers are having to deal with this, trying to make this end safely, because nobody wants this guy to harm himself or be harmed. And at the same time, they want this to end as well. So we're kind of waiting to see what they're going to do. They had to get permission to do the pit maneuver earlier, and they did that multiple times. So again, we can wait as long, the officers can wait as long as he wants, and we're not quite sure how long we want to sit with this, but we'll, for now, continue to kind of go with it on this. But, we did want to mention that, again, Tamron Hall, if you are wanting to watch that, it's going to be on. Set your DVRs for 1:06 a.m. here on ABC 7, and you will be able to watch that show in its entirety at that time. But right now, it just seems as if sheriff's deputies are willing to wait and see. You do have some discussions going on a little bit further back. We don't see the negotiator there anymore. He stepped away, so he's probably giving his assessment. Meantime, the dog is just laying in the grass.
Yeah, he's on the phone.
Kind of just watching what's happening here. So, again, we've talked about it not being an impact directly to the community unless you're living in one of those houses right around there.
That's right. Or along that street.
Yeah, or along that street. But he's not blocking any major thoroughfares. And so they can, it is somewhat safe for him as long as he is not armed. The officers are taking their time, and they're going to let him or let the negotiator do their work. And we'll see what he was on the phone with. See if that changes any tactics by what the negotiator walked away and had that conversation with. So we'll see.
Yeah, and again, we are assuming that he's under the influence. I think that is safe to assume, but we don't know what his state of mind was before and what his history is. So this, again, could be a mental health crisis that is unfolding that we are looking at. And so you have to commend law enforcement, with all of the recent interactions we've seen involving law enforcement. We have to commend them for taking their time and taking this slowly and trying to de-escalate the situation and allowing this suspect the time to come to his senses, hopefully.
Well, I don't know that he can come to his senses if he keeps inhaling, and that is unfortunately the challenge they're facing, because that's what he continues to do right there. So they may be trying to talk to their supervisors and find out what the next step is, because there's, if he just stays in that truck and continues to inhale, he's going to remain under the influence, and he's probably going to continue the current bad behavior. And so they might be he might have asked for something. We don't know. And if he did, maybe they're going to go get it for him and bring it to him so that they can say, here, look, we have this thing that you asked for. Mm-hmm. It's yours if you come out. There's no reason why they will want to force him out. If they can get him to come out, for whatever reason, they will hopefully, they want to end this without any further violence or confrontation.
Yeah, and we had some officers move up a little bit closer to the other deputies. I wonder if that indicated anything. And the man, we no longer see the guy who had the hat on.
No, he stepped away on the phone.
He was on the phone, but we no longer even see him on the sidewalk.
But that's to my point, as far as we don't know what he said to them, because he might have said, "I'd love a Coke," and maybe they're going to go get him one. I mean, that could be something as simple as that to get him to step away from the vehicle, because it's, clearly forcing him out with tear gas and pepper balls hasn't worked at this point. I mean, it's now 1:54, so we're fully an hour on roughly on the air with this, and most of it has been while he sits here. And again, they have approached the vehicle several times with the shield and several officers. Here he goes again, putting the car in reverse and trying to back up while he inhales. And so the officers have approached the vehicle several times, usually not when he's got it in reverse like he is now, but they have, and they've tried to toss tear gas canisters in there while they pepper sprayed to keep him away from it, but he was able to, grab it and toss it off to the side. We watched at one point. So he has been more than willing to take the less than lethal action and just continue his behavior.
Yeah. I wonder if we can identify what that first item is that he threw out of that vehicle. It's on the bike path there.
Well, we've
Just
zoomed
on the
in on
other
it.
side.
I don't
It's
know what
hard
it
to-
is. If anybody,
Yeah, I don't know if
any of our producers know, then that would be a great thing. But he tossed something out. You can see it on the ground there.
a couple of
in
things,
the bike
right?
path.
A couple of items.
And
And just the fact that he's still trying to get away and trying to back out of that where he is indicates his state of mind.
well, and the powerful addiction of inhaling like that as he continues in this place, that is the thing he wants, is that he continues to inhale. Just shows, the strength of that addiction for him. And, again, the officers know this. They can see it. And so okay, so we actually have Bruce Thomas with us. Bruce, this must be challenging for officers when they have everything under control, except they can't stop his inhaling and his behavior, which put him in this spot.
Yeah, ultimately you have a myriad of things going on. One, he's under the influence. Two, every time he revs the engine and backs up and backs into the radio car, you've now escalated a DUI, which is a misdemeanor, into a possible assault with a deadly weapon on a police officer. So they're not going anywhere. He's not going anywhere. They're willing to wait him out because it's a safe situation in retrospect.
And, I mean, if you can see the shot, you look here, it does seem as if they have a negotiator. He stepped away. Now he has come back. He has something in his hand. I don't know if that's a cell phone or whatever, but, I was making speculation that if he can give him something that's, non-threatening, it's not a problem to let him have it. If it'll get, it looks like he's got water. You're trying to just get him to come out of the vehicle, right? Like, I'll give you the water if you come out of the truck.
Correct. It's a negotiation. You know what? You want water? We'll get you water. Give me something. Get out of the vehicle. Surrender. No one's going to hurt you. What else can I give you? What else do you want? It's a total negotiating thing. And
it does look as if the man has water, a bottled water in his hand there. I couldn't see that. That looks to be what the officer in the dark shirt right in the center has. And Bruce, tell us a little bit about being around pepper spray and tear gas like that. I've got to think he is desperate for a drink of water.
Yeah. Yes, he is, David. His throat is burning, his nostrils are burning, his eyes are burning. So he wants the water to flush his eyes out, maybe to take a sip and, swig it around, spit it out. But it's not a good feeling, and so that's why he wants the water. And they're more than happy to give that to him.
Well, did you see what I don't know if you could see that, Giovanna. He tossed the water to him next to that K-rail, which makes me think, he said, well, I'm going to throw it over here to you. You just come over and get it.
Yeah.
Now, if he steps out of that vehicle to get the water, Bruce, what are officers going to do?
They're going to do a swarm technique. Multiple officers, and this is all pre-planned by the supervisor on scene at the terminus of the pursuit. Officers so, and so. You're going to go in. You're going to swarm them. Minimal amount of force. Handcuff him. We're done.
And so what's the next step if he chooses not to get out and get the water? I mean, do you just keep talking to him, I suppose?
At some point, we call King's X. You have a canine that's en route or on scene, and they're going to use the canine as a tool like we've talked about before. They will deploy the canine. It will jump into the vehicle. He will not like that, and he will jump out, and then they'll take him into custody.
Yeah. So is this textbook their protocol here? How they're handling this. This is textbook, in your opinion?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there is no such thing as textbook, but there are plan A, B, and C, and they're doing what they want to do according to the plans they have. They're not going to use deadly force on this individual, obviously. Less lethal force, pepper ball rounds, maybe a less lethal shotgun round to get him to comply, and they are going to use force to take him into custody just because he is not complying.
Are you surprised that he has not complied based on how much tear gas and whatever else they've thrown at him?
Yeah, that's a little surprising, but I really can't tell from Air 7 HD how vented the pickup truck is as far as windows open, rear cab window open, but they've definitely deployed it, and for him to stay in there, well, that, he obviously is not affected by it.
Yeah, and you've seen a lot of things. Ever seen a suspect with a balloon inhaling this sort of situation?
No, every time we have a pursuit, we tend to think they're all the same, but unfortunately, they're not. And we see something different every time, and this is a new one.
Well, Bruce, we know that you have to go. Want to say thank you for joining us real quickly to get your perspective and see what we can do. That's Bruce Thomas, our law enforcement expert, joining us now as we continue to monitor this pursuit and now standoff. So the officers, you did see a bottled water tossed over. As Bruce mentioned, if you're in a cab with all of that pepper spray, he is going to be parched. His throat's going to be burning. He's going to want something. And they brought him water. But it does appear as if the way they tossed it, maybe about 10 yards away from him, that they had hoped, yes, here's your water, and they tossed it so that he would get out of the vehicle and go get it. He has not, but he has continued to inhale, as you've seen, and it is an unusual. So I think the most unusual is the size of the canister. It's certainly not just your something simple. I mean, it is a large canister there, and he is not putting it in a balloon anymore, which is what he was doing during the chase. That was an unusual sight when we're watching him drive along, and he's got a balloon that he's holding on to, and he's inhaling while he's driving. But then once he stopped, he hasn't been using the balloon. He just periodically will take a breath straight out of the canister.
That's right. And if you're just joining us, likely you tuned in to watch General Hospital. We are following breaking news in Compton, and that's why you're not seeing your show. We'll get you information on when you can see today's episode of General Hospital sometime shortly. But again, we're following breaking news in Compton. This is to the left of your screen. You're watching live pictures of the end of a pursuit that started a little over an hour ago, maybe an hour and 15 minutes ago. Again, in Compton, the driver in that white pickup truck wanted for reckless driving. Deputies following him through Compton, through city streets, and attempting 3 pit maneuvers and dropping 2 spike strips, all of which failed. This driver led them to this scene here near the wash along a bike path. This is on Poplar and I believe Wilmington. And this is what we've been looking at for the last good half hour or so.
Yeah, and one of the things, I keep saying that he drove reasonably, but you did see in that video there, especially with Air 7 HD and its speedometer, he was driving down some narrow residential streets at about 50 miles an hour. So clearly he was recklessly driving. Then after that, once they were really on him, he just kind of did this, what you're looking at now, almost a measure of a slow speed chase coming to full and complete stops. But yeah, they did pit him several times, and they laid down spike strips. Oddly enough, the spike strip on the truck didn't seem to have much of effect. It's when he drove himself down into this corner that he was no longer able to go anywhere. And we do think that they put something when they threw one of the tear gas canisters into the cab. We think at some point they shoved something into the wheel well or near the axle there on the front that would keep him from going forward. Then he could only go backwards, which is what he's tried to do it a couple of times. And as Bruce Thomas mentioned, that's a felony. He's, you know, when he drove his vehicle after being pitted and he drove straight into the vehicles, that too is a felony because you've now, it's attempted murder on a police officer or a law enforcement, a peace officer. So, yeah, he has tried any number of things and just refuses to give up. It does look like, what are the officers doing there in the house, in the front yard? Maybe they're clearing that home.
Maybe they are trying to evacuate at this point. Maybe kids are coming home from school. What time is it? It's 2 o'clock.
2:05.
Yeah, maybe
probably
not.
Still in school for another hour or so.
Yeah.
So we'll see. But yeah, you know what? I mean, it may be one of those deals where they just they need to know where he is. They could potentially approach from that side if they wanted to. That may be harder for them to, you know, I'm not sure why they would, but they at least went over there.
Yeah, maybe they're trying to get access to the front of the pickup truck.
Well, they could come across the sidewalk, if the bridge, if they wanted. I don't know that they want to be in front of the vehicle, but
that would expose them too much. Yeah.
I do keep using as a litmus test the dog in the front yard. It doesn't seem as if it's a remarkably tense environment.
Not ruffled.
If the dog is not running and barking and bothered, the dog is just casually laying there. So it doesn't seem as if, it just does seem to be that this guy just will not get out of the car. He will not get out of the truck. And the negotiator is back. So he's back talking to him again. We're just not quite sure what's happening in that yard.
Yeah, it looks like they're perhaps working on putting a plan into place. We don't know. But going back to the balloon and how long he was in that vehicle, inhaling from that balloon, we don't know what was in that balloon. He also has a vape, so we don't know, again, what he has been ingesting. We assume that he's under the influence just based on his behavior. And again, we are assuming that maybe there is some mental health factor at play here. We don't know. We don't know at this point. But the deputies that you're looking at that are armed, pointing their weapons toward the pickup truck have been there, you know, for quite some time now, and we've seen less lethal. Oh, now we see, okay, it does appear that they're evacuating this family. Look, Philip. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're taking them out of harm's way.
Which, you know, that could be any reason. They could be taking them out of harm's way, or they may need to go somewhere. They may have been able to poke their head out and say, we need to leave. We can't stay here. We want to go.
And need to pick up our child from school.
So they're going to get them out of that house, which clearly they were able to do, which is great news. And again, the behavior of this person continues.
Yeah. He's still inhaling from both the tank and the vape.
Well, and again, his throat is just likely raw with the pepper spray and everything. And I'm just amazed that he doesn't get the water. As much as I know, you know, sitting here, as soon as he gets out of the cab of that vehicle and goes get the water, they are going to swarm him. I just am stunned that in his state of mind, probably just dehydrated at a high level, that he doesn't think in some way that he could get it.
What's he drinking now? Did they get water to him that we didn't?
Nope, he does. Yeah, he does have something.
He does have some water or something.
Or he has something, but he doesn't have the.
Oh,
no. Okay, there you go.
Throw it out.
So I don't know. He didn't get the water bottle they tossed to him because he hasn't gotten out of the vehicle. So I don't know what that was, if there was any water in it. He might have just, who knows. But it does look as if, again, there's the negotiator there. He is
still just
clearly talking to him. There is a line of communication, but you know, it's more of the same here for an hour now, as he just refuses to get out. And we all know how this is going to end. He'll eventually either be taken out with the canine, or he will step out and they'll swarm him. But this gives us a shot, kind of a different angle as you look into the cab. I can't tell if that to the left is a bunch of different, what that is. Oh, I think that's the pepper spray on the windshield. It's not anything. I thought maybe that was something in the passenger seat, but I believe that's the pepper spray, and it gives us a chance to see that window on the side there, which look on the passenger side, it looks to be broken, possibly, if I'm not mistaken. And that would also be how they were throwing things in, shooting things in.
Yeah, looks like they just shot right through the glass, maybe. I don't know, would it get through? I don't know. But I thought you were referring to on the ground, the spike strip there. That was the spike strip
Sure.
that finally
That's probably wrapped
stopped him.
around. That's probably wrapped around his axle. You know, when he drove over it. But no, the front windshield has marks that look as if it's pepper ball residue, but the passenger side window looks as if it's been broken. And remember, we watched multiple times as sheriff's deputies walked up that sidewalk, approached the passenger side, and tossed things in there.
And then we watched when they tossed tear gas in, and then he picked it up and threw it right out.
Picked it up and threw it right out. So he sits. And we saw him wipe his eyes, so we know he's at some point affected by it. But I'm just continue to be stunned that he has not shown much in the way of impact of all of that tear gas and pepper spray that's in the cab of that vehicle. It just is mind-boggling that he's able to just continue to sit through it.
Yeah, he doesn't seem to be in distress right now, and that could be because he's under the influence of whatever he's been ingesting.
Certainly that plays a role. We do know that down the bike path on the right of our screen, there used to be sheriff's deputies there. We saw them kind of back away, and they're not there now. And then the other side, too, you've got to think that significantly further down both directions of that bike path, there are officers that are keeping people from even approaching it. So my guess is that if you were to go down the bike path, you're going to see it blocked off because you know, can you imagine somebody's using the bike path and they come upon this accidentally? So you're not getting anywhere near this if you happen to go in that neighborhood.
Right, and even on the other side, if Air 7 can pull out again, I think I saw a patrol car down to the left on another street, closing off that street so people could not get through. Yeah, indeed. So at least they're blocking off people there as well. People from accessing that area as well.
And that's the thing that can, you know, if you're the suspect, I don't know what you think that you're going to escape, or if you're just waiting, if your addiction is such that you don't care, that you want to continue to sit here like this. But there is no escape from this, and I can't imagine that escape is necessarily on his mind right now. It's the only thing it seems to be on his mind is a failure to comply, because he hasn't done much other than periodically back up when the mood strikes him.
Yeah, he is a stubborn one. And the man that we believe was a crisis negotiator, or, you know, hostage negotiator, as you were calling him, he has backed away. It seemed like there was some communication, and then he walked away. Maybe there was another message exchanged, another request that he is now trying to make happen.
Well, we periodically see new officers come up. We're now seeing the man in the blue shirt there. He's come up. Generally speaking, it's been the same folks there the whole time, but, you know, it can be remarkably tense. So I am assuming that they kind of rotate in and out so that one person doesn't get overwhelmed. And there are, I think Bruce Thomas said it best, there's no, you know, playbook for something like this, but there certainly are plans A, B, C, and D, and I do think there is a general MO of how to handle these things, and that's maybe why we continue to see new people come in. But as you mentioned, Giovanna, the crisis negotiator was clearly somebody who, when they came in, everything was different for that person as he was talking to this person. And several times, now twice at least, we've seen him walk away. Both times he was on the phone when he walked away. So we don't know if he's gone to get something or if he's just not there anymore.
Right. And then Bruce Thomas also mentioned the canine possibly being brought in. We're not sure. I'm not sure if he said that he knew for a fact that they had already called in a canine, or if that's you know, part of the protocol at times in these situations.
And now we've got a couple of people, and the officers are basically, I think, now that they're out of the front yard, telling them to either stay in the house or come on and leave the area. My assumption is once you leave that area, you're not getting back in until this is over. So you kind of have your choice, I would assume, because you're now technically within a crime scene once they put that tape up. And so, people have their lives. And, we talked about not having much of an impact to the area at large. It's clearly impacting the people who live in these houses
Homes.
right here.
And it does look like they are encouraging the people to perhaps consider leaving. Or maybe they're asking about what's behind the home and if there's some access to the bike path.
Well, clearly they don't want to
trying to
put them in
figure out
harm's
what's-
range,
yeah.
and you're right. They may be just saying,
Yeah.
look, you're going to have to exit a different way. I don't know. I mean, it's so
Yeah,
we
maybe that's what
can't
they're-
know,
yeah.
but the main thing is officers are not going to put any people at risk, and the way this person behaves. I mean, he's not going anywhere, but at the same time, you just want to remove the variables. You just don't want accidents to happen.
Yeah, and we don't know if, we've seen this before. He could exit the vehicle with something that appears like a weapon in his hands, and that escalates the situation, and law enforcement feels that they have to open fire. We just don't know.
Well, the one thing that is likely is that there were so many people that approached the passenger side to throw the tear gas in. They're going to know if they saw a weapon. So you're right, he could get out of the vehicle and do something unsafe, but they have so much more knowledge now on what he's doing, what he has, what's in that truck, because at least twice they have walked up to the passenger side with multiple officers and been able to see inside the vehicle.
Yeah.
So if he has a weapon, they know it.
Right.
If it's likely he doesn't, they also know that. There's no guarantees right now.
Right.
But by being able to walk up and look into the cab of the vehicle, they know a lot more about what they have to face. We're seeing a couple more people now leave the area, and the officers, every time somebody has come out, the officers have directly gone over and spoken to them and either escorted them out or, taken them back into their
That's probably
their
the
place.
process. They've probably been trying to reach these people, maybe look up telephone numbers to get, because all these homes have gates, who knows? They're probably trying to get rid of, but make contact with the homeowners here and have them leave. The other process that I'm thinking might be happening is maybe the crisis negotiator, again, speculation, has asked him for his name. Maybe they're trying to reach his family. Maybe they're trying to get someone down to the scene that can, persuade him to exit the car.
Very possible. When you mention that, the one thing that strikes me that we haven't seen, a cell phone. We haven't seen him try to talk to anybody. We haven't seen him do anything like that. It has primarily been his inhaling of whatever substance he has in that canister, that large canister, and he's taken it straight out of the canister, and we have seen him inhale it out of a balloon. So he has been incapable so far of stopping that behavior. And it seems as if that's the driving factor for him to stay there right now, because he's not been given anything. It doesn't seem as if he's made any demands, but he has not stopped his consumption. And that seems to be a motivating factor for him every single, every few minutes. Right. He inhales.
Right. And to the right of your screen, again, you're looking at his behavior earlier when he was trying to back out of his position there and trying to drive and move that deputy vehicle behind him. And we have seen him, rev his engine a few times, and we've seen the smoke several times, and he still continues. He's not doing it at the moment, but not that long ago he was trying. And the danger there is that he could spark some flames.
Oh, well, if you do enough with the tires, you could set the tire on fire. And that would be that would be something that
Another problem.
that would be another problem altogether. So, but yeah, he continues to inhale. He continues to go back to the canister, and officers continue to keep weapons drawn on him. Most of them are the less than lethal variety, but certainly they have the option there if it goes to that level. There are any number of weapons pointed on this person. You see, the neighborhood is overwhelmed with law enforcement. Now, there we go. We haven't seen that lately. An officer, a sheriff's deputy, has driven a vehicle onto the bike path. Not sure. It doesn't look as if they can get past that obstruction there on the bike path. Don't know if there's something in the other direction doing the same, but that vehicle right there, yeah. So there's nowhere to go in either direction on the bike path. And the thing is, nobody can get on the bike path. That, I think, is probably what we're looking at this particular point, is that officers don't want an innocent person to hop on a bike path as they would every afternoon, maybe at 2:20 in the afternoon, and start riding on that bike path. They don't want them just coming up on this guy who could potentially hurt them.
Yeah. So again, we have been following this since what, 1:40?
Well, we started, we started just before 1 o'clock.
Yep.
It was right about 12:54, right about that time.
Started as a reckless driving pursuit in Compton, in the Compton area, and we're still in the Compton area. The driver of that pickup truck you see there, leading sheriff's deputies through several city streets, refusing to stop. They conducted 3 pit maneuvers, and the driver was still able to get away. And they laid down 2 spike strips as well. But to your point, the point you were making earlier, he hasn't been driving at high speeds. He has been driving dangerously because he drove in the opposite direction of traffic. As you see him there crossing to the other side of the street, that's clearly dangerous, but no super high speeds.
And the most serious offense, that we've seen, and it is serious indeed, is, attempted murder of a peace officer. That right there, you're looking at the video there, is, any number of incidents where he did that. You can't drive the vehicles directly at the officers. When he put it in reverse and backed into the officers, that too, Bruce Thomas said, qualifies as a potential felony, whereas before it was reckless driving. And that, misdemeanor, this is not. And more than anything, my assumption is that he is immediately going to need assistance for the substance abuse. So, that's they know he's not of right mind, and they're just wanting to get him some help and end this without any further confrontation.
And now we see to the left of your screen. Oh, this is where he crossed the spike strip is right there. He stopped, and then, yeah.
Our
really
negotiator is back, and
Yeah,
it looks
that's
as
what
if
I
he's
was
got
saying.
something written down or a piece of paper or something in his hands. Not sure what it is, but yeah, you mentioned it continues to be the same behavior. He leaves and then comes back with something. One time it was a bottle of water, and this time we're not quite sure what he's brought back, but clearly they're trying everything to just convince this person to get out of the vehicle. And from this perspective, we can't tell.
Yeah, we can't tell what. It doesn't appear that he's talking to him at this point.
Well, the one thing that we have on our side is that our negotiator seems to be a very nonverbal talker. In other words, he whenever he's talking, we can see him use his hands, and so we know that he's talking to him. So he's pointing to things. He said, I think he probably said, "There's a bottle of water right there," because that's where he had thrown the bottle of water. And I think that if you listen to Bruce Thomas, that's what this is about right now. This guy is wanting water. And I think the crisis negotiator is telling him, well, there's water right there. So
hard to see, but yeah, you could tell that he's talking to him based on his hand movements. But he's wearing that hat, so we can't really see his face. He's doing his job, which is to engage and try to make this guy comfortable enough to talk to him and maybe share some details of himself and why he's doing this, and maybe, as you mentioned, give him whatever they can to provide him some comfort, enough so that it'll persuade him to come out of the vehicle, step out of the vehicle.
I wonder, because, and correct me if I'm wrong, I've not seen him inhale nearly as recently as we were seeing before. You know, there is the possibility at some point he runs out of whatever he has been using, and at some point he's, you know, going to, you know, start getting a state of mind that's more effective for them to communicate with him. I do see a couple of officers there mustering up behind the negotiator, but other than, you know, the negotiator, pretty much everything has continued to be about the same. So I don't know if it looks as if that's a SWAT officer there behind. I don't know if that means that they are going to make, you know, use the canine unit. I haven't seen canine, but see how we've got two other officers coming forward. It looks to me like they're SWAT. So I don't know if this is going to be a change of tactics where they're going to take a little bit more of an aggressive approach to get him out. But they still have some options before them. When Bruce was mentioning the canine unit, there's so much pepper spray, so much tear gas in the cab. I don't know how that would impact the dog. So before he had left, I'd wanted to ask him if that plays a role, or if the dogs are trained to manage that. I don't know, but it does seem as if that might be a reasonable thing as to why you might not use the canine unit, because there's so much pepper spray in there. But these are new officers that we've seen behind. They might just be getting some perspective themselves about what they have in front of them. They might be interviewing the officers to find out what they saw in that cab. But it does seem as if that's a new piece of the puzzle. Right.
Also new, we have a crew on the ground there, and that is what you're looking at. To the right of your screen, that's a live picture from one of our cameras. We believe that's, you know, behind those deputy vehicles, where all of the officers are, you know, armed and pointing their guns, their weapons towards the pickup truck. And you can see the gate that we're looking at and the bridge. So yeah, that looks to be his pickup truck in the front.
Yeah, that crew on the ground is directly behind what you're looking at there. They are just up the street. We saw the yellow tape a moment ago, so Air 7 HD is able to get you a shot inside the crime scene. And our ground crew is just outside that crime scene tape. So, you know, if we get a chance, they might be able to talk to some of those residents who are leaving. But we are going to be able to continue to let you know how this all resolves itself. Because it will. At some point, it is going to. And again, we mentioned General Hospital is going to air later. As we continue to follow this, Tamron Hall is going to be on at 1:06 a.m., so you're not going to miss your shows. But for this community in Compton, they are going to want to know how this is going to resolve itself and when it's going to resolve itself as we approach time for a lot of kids to be getting out of school and starting to go home. And there is a heavy law enforcement presence in this neighborhood. You can see all of the sheriff's cars, and that's just in this shot. They are across the wash. They are down the bike path. They are blocking streets up above that you can see there. So they are surrounding this area. So many people in this area are going to want to know what's happening. Yeah. And this has been going on now for in excess, well, it's almost 2 hours now since this person was initially tried to be pulled over for reckless driving.
Yeah, they're taking every precaution to keep the community safe. And we're seeing some activity here on the other side of the wash, some people gathering here. I wonder, we're not sure if that's related, but...
well, they don't want them approaching that bridge.
Yep.
You saw them getting the crime scene tape out, so they're probably pulling the crime scene tape again. Again, you're just trying to keep people from getting in that line of fire and at risk. See, the officer pulled it. Yeah, they're they're not wanting them to walk next to the wash on that side because that puts them right next to the bridge. And if you think about it, they want to go across that bridge. That bridge is there because it's probably a heavily trafficked area to get back and forth across the wash, and they can't. And you can understand why sheriff's deputies don't want them to, because there are guns pointed right at the mouth of the bridge. And so you can't put people at risk due to this person's behavior.
Right. And another thought that is that he may be a Compton resident. The pursuit, he stayed in Compton. He wasn't on any freeways. He seemed to be comfortable, with the streets, the lay of the land there. So he might be a resident, and we don't know if anybody who might know him or, watching this might be coming to the scene. And so it's maybe someone that knows him is trying to intervene. There seemed to be some conversations in that where we saw that the last grouping of people. We don't know. It's all speculation. But these are some of the things that we've seen in the past.
I'm not sure why the officer is pulling back on that SUV, the second one there. That was the one that seemed to drive over the spike strip when they were pulling up to bump into the back of the first SUV there. So maybe that, yeah, he did. It's a flat tire.
Yeah,
so they have flattened the tire there. And I don't necessarily know what is needed to move, other than maybe they're just wanting to move that vehicle out of the way. But they are repositioning it. And that vehicle, actually, what had happened was he had tried to push that SUV out of the way. And just as a precaution, they backed a second police car, sheriff's vehicle, up against the rear bumper. But when they did that, they actually ran over the spike strip that had been laying down to prevent the suspect from getting away, and they flattened their own tire because they couldn't pull it out of the way. We do want to mention, just again, we mentioned the housekeeping note just a moment ago, but because of this pursuit standoff coverage, Tamron Hall is at 1:06. General Hospital will re-air at 2:06 a.m. Clearly, you're not probably staying up that late if you're up at this hour, but you could set your DVR, but you will not miss the episodes. 1:06 for Tamron Hall, 2:06 for General Hospital. They will be aired in their entirety, because we've been staying with this so that we can make sure that this community of Compton knows what's going on at this particular standoff. Right.
And again, the video that you are watching to the right of your screen that's live. It's not video. It's live. It's from our camera on the scene there, and you see the sheriff's deputies congregating there. They're just on the left side of your screen. You can see where they are standing. That's the wider picture, and to the right is from the ground crew. So you can see that they're just trying to figure this out and trying to persuade this suspect to turn himself in. We know that we believe there is a crisis negotiator there. In the live picture on the left, you can see that he is again gesturing his hands, trying to communicate or communicating with that driver. Again, just trying to put an end, a stop to this before it escalates into something worse. But it does look like authorities are taking their time with this. There is no rush. They have evacuated, we think. We've seen residents leave, be escorted out of their homes. So we think that was an evacuation, an intentional evacuation. And we've seen that they've closed off streets in the community on the other side of the wash, and there is law enforcement on either side of that bike path. So they're doing everything they can to sort of establish a perimeter and keep the community here safe. But in the meantime, this suspect is being very stubborn. He is not giving in.
Well,
they tried to throw water at him, and he was not falling for that either. He won't leave the vehicle.
Well, and as you mentioned, the negotiator is there. And again, we have watched as he continues to inhale from a canister that I believe is still under his left arm, but I can't see it for sure. And it seems to me that it's been a bit since we've actually seen him inhale whatever he has in the canister. I think there for a time he was continually going back to it. He does have the vape
right
still.
now, yes.
He is still vaping, but periodically we would see him with the blue canister, and it is not a small canister. It is a larger one, but I just can't tell if that's what he's doing now, because we don't have quite the tight shot we had a moment ago. But it's just one of those deals where if they can separate him from his intake, for whatever is causing, whatever is putting him under the influence, if they can separate him from that, I feel like they have a chance to get him out of there. But if he continues to alter his own mental state, then this is just going to continue to do exactly, we're just going to continue to see the exact same thing.
Well, they fired tear gas and pepper balls several times, and that didn't seem to affect him much. I mean, we did see him wipe his face, and he was in distress for a minute, but he has stayed put. This is a video on the right that I was referring to when they sort of, approached the vehicle. There's the pepper spray, we believe, and or tear gas. And
see right there, he grabs it.
He grabs.
I think he
is this
throws
the time
it out.
that he?
No,
grabs
that's the
it and
first
throws it out?
time.
That's
I believe
the first time. The second time they threw it into the actual,
No, they
into
threw
the
it in.
seat.
I just think he leaned over and got it and might have just put it right back into the back of his pickup, is what I'm saying. Each time they throw it in there, he grabs it and tosses it.
Yeah. Another time he actually picked it up, threw it out the window.
Now, one thing that I've noticed here, if you look at the live shot there on your left, the sheriff's deputy, or the sheriff's vehicle that was moved because of the flat tire, not because of, but in spite of the back tire, you see the SWAT team there talking to the negotiator. So he's going to be giving them all of the information they need in the event that they want to go in and talk to them. You saw that he was briefing them. Now you see him on the phone walking away. So he's going to be providing all of the information that his expertise can provide to people who are going to make the decision as to the next step for these officers. Because the good news on this is that this can be a very measured approach for deputies. They can take steps that are going to protect the person and the community and the officers. And this negotiator, this person who's been talking to him, is basically picking his brain. I mean, he's talking to him, he's trying to get him to end it, but he's also taking a read. He's also asking him about, what he's been doing, why he's here, what's happening. And all of those things are going to play into their decision as to what's next and what will be required to end this. I don't like to say peacefully, because peacefully would not have this in the first place, but less confrontation. It would be, whenever they can end this without anybody getting hurt, that is what they really want.
Right. And we see the crisis negotiator, again, this is all speculation, but I think it's safe to say he is there to de-escalate the situation and persuade him to come out. We see him on the phone. So maybe there's another request that he has made, and he is holding something. We don't know what that is. Hard to know. This process could take a long time.
Well,
it already is taking a long time.
It has, but you can't really. To me, it's a reasonable thing. Why not wait? There's no harm to anyone right now. All of the folks that needed to leave their homes have left their homes, and they've gotten out if that was what they needed to do, or if deputies needed to move them out for their own safety. Either way, the people who live in those homes that we can see there, they at least, let's see, there were a couple with their child, and there were 3 other people. So we've seen 5, 6 people, 7 people leave those 2 houses. We've not seen anyone move out of the house where the dog is in the front yard. But again, the person just continues to use whatever substance he has been using. And it is, you just don't know when he's going to stop that, if he's going to run out at any point and stop it. But he's been vaping quite a bit. He also has the canister, which some people have told us it might be nitrous oxide. It could be anything that is in that canister. So, but he is inhaling it, which clearly we don't, has put him in a place of instability. So now here comes the negotiator again. He's coming back, and He's written some things down, it does appear. So maybe he's just taking his own notes, but now, you notice the hand on the shoulder. He's going to tell him, I'm here, and he's going to start talking again. So he has something in his hand, something that is black there that's in his hand. It could be a phone. Maybe that's what he's going to be able to provide. But clearly he has tried to engage with the guy again.
And again, you and I have so little information, we have to speculate a bit, but maybe he was talking to family, maybe he's getting some details that, some specific words that might trigger the suspect to cooperate. Maybe a message from a mother or a father or a sibling. Again, we don't know what's involved here. But it does seem like this crisis negotiator is trying to communicate with him and persuade him.
Well, he is talking to him. It doesn't seem like the guy's listening. But he's almost looking into the rearview mirror, and he could, he could at some point pass out. He could just get tired and fall asleep. I mean, you look at him, and I mean, he's not behaving as he was when we first started the standoff, when he was hanging out of the window, repeatedly inhaling over and over and over. And if in some way he is coming down off of his high, this could be, and that is if, this could be the moment where officers are able to reach him as person to person and convince him to come on out. But if he continues to go back to the addiction, I think it's going to be really difficult for them to get him to come out, because I don't see what would change his behavior at this point.
Yeah. And again, if you are just joining us, it is now 2:41. We're following breaking news in Compton, the end of a police pursuit. Sheriff's deputies in pursuit of the driver in that pickup truck you see there, sort of in the middle of your screen. You likely tuned in to watch General Hospital, and if that's the case, we can tell you that you can watch today's show at 2:06 a.m. here on ABC7. And if you missed Tamron Hall, her show will air, was it at 1:06 a.m.?
Tamron 106, General Hospital 206.
And General Hospital at 2:06. But right now, again, we continue to follow this breaking news, and we've been following this since about 1 o'clock, so going on 2 hours here. The driver of this pickup truck driving through streets recklessly, we are told that is the reason why authorities tried to get him to stop, and he was evading authorities there, deputies. And they tried 3 times to stop him with a pit maneuver, and they laid a few spike strips as well. That did not work. He ended up at the end of, Poplar and Wilmington. That's where we have the live pictures to the left of your screen. That's what's happening right now. But to the right, you're seeing that effort to get this driver to stop. At that point, they were hard to say what street they were on at that point, but you can see several deputy patrol vehicles behind the pickup truck. And he seemed to stop at lights. He seemed to obey most of the traffic laws and wasn't speeding too terribly fast. But he certainly was not listening to officers and would not stop. And they did have to, engage 3 times with a pit maneuver, and he kept going. And we do have some video of one incident of that pit maneuver where he just weaved through several cars, several deputies to get out, and actually drove through a divider or over a divider to get away from them. So that is what we've been following. But for the last good 35, 40 minutes, he has been here at the end of this street where there is a wash. And there's been very little activity, although authorities have been firing tear gas and pepper balls and trying to communicate with him. Authorities have also evacuated some residents from this street. And here we are.
With no real change in behavior. So we appreciate everybody bearing with us here. Again, we have the ground shot, we have Air 7 HD, and we have reporters in the neighborhood trying to get the latest on this. We're now approaching 3 o'clock here before too long, and it's about we're coming up on 2:45, and we just don't know how this is going to end. I don't see this ending quickly in the sense that the person hasn't changed their behavior at all. At all. He's just sitting there, and the officer, it does seem as if the SWAT team officers are there in the event they might be needed. But right now, you still see the person trying to engage and talk to him. And, you know, I've just never seen, never say never. I mean, people have just stayed in their car for any length of time. We've done it over the years. So this is nothing that officers haven't seen before. I don't know that I've ever seen someone just continue to inhale and continue to use the substances that put them in a place, you know, that made them make irrational decisions. I mean, this person has just continued to inhale whatever substance that was in that canister. Maybe nitrous oxide, maybe helium. Who knows what he would use? I don't know. And we don't know what it was. But he continued, and he hasn't. I don't know if it's just gone or not, but he hasn't used it in a bit. But he does continue to vape. That's for sure.
Yes, and I'm not sure if you mentioned the white balloon. I forgot to mention that in my recap. But he did have a white balloon throughout that pursuit that he was huffing from, inhaling from. And so that's what authorities likely saw. It's what we saw several times. The balloon would deflate and then inflate. And then he was, again, inhaling from the balloon. And then he had the tank that you mentioned, Philip. And here, again, to the right of your screen, you see one of the pit maneuvers, or the one where he just weaved right through those deputy vehicles. And I believe he crossed the divider there.
It does seem as if
continued on.
Yeah, it does seem as if this is in the hands now of the negotiator. You see, they have all of the tools they need there to do whatever they need to do. But it does seem to me as if they are just willing to let the negotiator do what he needs to do. Not sure where what Air 7 is looking at, but that I think is the sheriff's helicopter possibly. And so we know they have been above the scene for quite some time as well. But, you know, they have all of the tools there. But if you notice that the SWAT team officers seem to be just milling about, kind of waiting. They've been briefed. You know, the negotiator continues to talk to them. I'm trying to, as I look at Air 7, if we could maybe go to the negotiator, okay, or look in tight on that guy. The negotiator has stepped away again. If you see him off to the side, so he has stepped away, and it looks as if we've got new people. There's the shot there from the ground. And they're going to be communicating with superiors to find out what you would like to do. He's going to tell them everything that he gathers by talking to the person. And then, you know, they will decide if more force is necessary to end this. Are they ready to end it, or do we want to keep going and keep letting it play out? But they're going to explore all options, and we might just be here watching and waiting with you guys as they do it.
And that is a better alternative, isn't it? It is better that they take their time and that they are methodical and that they you know, try everything to persuade him to surrender without any confrontation, without any violence, without anyone being hurt. He doesn't seem to be upset at all or in any kind of distress, despite the tear gas and the pepper balls. But again, as we've been saying, he's been under the influence, we assume, and that might be the reason why he is so calm at this point.
And you know, he continues to watch them. It looks as if in the rearview mirror, and so he is just kind of waiting on them. I'm not sure if he has asked for something, but you know, it also might it might be a tactic on their part to just not engage anymore and just let him sit there and see what he's going to do. Because again, as you mentioned, time is on the side of the officers. They're not needing to rush the vehicle because he's not doing anything. At some point, you're going to want to let people start going back home. So you're going to have to either use a canine or approach him as they have done in the past and just take him out of there by force. But also, if he stops using the substances that he was using,
But right
he will
now
at
he's
some
inhaling.
point.
He's still ingesting something.
For sure, but we don't. What I'm saying is, I'm talking about the canister.
Yes.
That massive canister that he was using, and I don't know if is that what he's got in his hand there.
It's hard to tell.
I can't really tell, but at some point, if he stops doing anything other than maybe vaping nicotine, he will begin to sober up, and he will probably walk out. So there's the possibility that might be, let's just disengage. He'll stop eventually and come out. I mean, who knows? We don't know what their tactics are. They're not talking to us, but they're talking to each other, and there's certainly, that even looks like a different negotiator now. There's one with a hat, and this one does not have a hat. So it does seem as if they're both there. The guy in the hat's behind,
yes, that's
and it looks
correct.
as if another guy. So they may be both talking to him now, because they're both wearing the different kind of shirt. You know, the black polo. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't look as if this is the negotiator. Walk in on the. If you look there to the right, that is the initial person who was talking to him, and he has walked away for a bit.
Well, actually,
Nope, you're right. Yeah.
picture
I'm
on the
sorry.
left,
You're
you
right.
see both of them standing side by side. But I want to get to Bruce Thomas. He's joining us once again. Bruce, I'm not sure if you have watched what's transpired here, which hasn't been much, really. We're still sort of in the same place since the last time we spoke to you. But any other thoughts or insight on this?
What we've seen now is we've seen the Special Enforcement Bureau, the SWAT guys, have now responded. The big helicopter you saw was Air 5, which probably brought some additional assets into the situation. And SWAT is going to take over the operations. At this point, it is a wait and see, but at some point, this is going to have to change.
Do you tell in negotiate? Is the negotiator? Will he tell him you have a couple options here, or will they just come and surprise him and use measures that don't let him know what's coming?
Yeah, you don't want to allude to anything you're going to do, such as a use of force. However, they are going to tell him, look, you are going to ultimately end up going to jail. Why don't we just end this whole thing? We got you water. We got you things you wanted. Got you a phone maybe to call relatives. Let's end this. Let's all go home.
I will say, Bruce, I haven't seen them actually give him anything like that. So, I mean...
yeah, I think it was when I think David was talking about earlier, they tossed water to him, I think, or something.
Yes.
Yeah, we saw them toss water, but
Yes.
I've not seen him...
I think Bruce was saying just in general, sometimes they'll give
okay.
a phone. We haven't seen any evidence of that, but maybe we missed it. Hard to know. But also I was thinking, is it likely that they're trying to reach his family, and maybe get their help to de-escalate this?
Yeah, that's entirely possible. You run the license plate, send somebody to the house. Maybe, hopefully, that is a good address that they can talk to. Somebody there and say, hey, look why don't you come with us? Let's take you to the scene of this situation, and maybe you can talk to them. They're going to use every tool in their bag.
And it does look as if the SWAT guys continue to talk to the negotiators. What do you think they're trying to learn from the people who are talking directly to him?
Well, one of the things that they want to get is this person's state of mind. And everybody says, oh, that's kind of a dumb question. No, is he rational? Is he irrational? We know he's intoxicated, he's been using drugs. So at this point, if you feel you've gone as far as you can go, meaning the crisis negotiator, the CNT team, then at that point the SWAT guys will say, okay, we've gone as far as we can. Now we will put our plan into play.
Well, Bruce, I don't know if you can see the camera shot, but they have changed some tactics that I would like to know what you think. Every officer has pulled back, except for now it does seem the SWAT guys are moving closer. Even they moved forward, and they're all of the regular, I want to call them regular deputies, short of knowing what I should call them appropriately, they've pulled back. There's no one around the vehicle anymore, and it does appear as if SWAT is, in your words, taking control here. Is that what I'm seeing when I see everybody stepping back from the vehicle?
Yeah, what they are formulating, ideally when they move the other patrol car back, they want to bring the Bearcat in to lock the suspect's vehicle in, but in this case they can't because, as we've seen before, the suspect puts the pickup truck in reverse, smokes the tires, and backs into that patrol car. So they don't want to give him that out. But, yes, the SWAT guys have replaced all the regular patrol deputies on the scene, and at this point it's a SWAT operation.
And what would they do next, do you think?
Well, the SWAT guys come with various tools. The less lethal, the pepper balls, the tear gas rounds that they've had before, maybe even asking to deploy the robot, to deploy Andros, like we saw in the LAPD operation earlier, where they want to try to get up to the vehicle and put a flashbang in, maybe something to that extent so that the suspect just jumps out of that vehicle. They can do a swarm technique and take him into custody.
We saw deputies escort some residents, but they have been using the property quite a bit, going through there. Is it likely that they're strategizing to have some sort of activity come? Maybe there's I'm speculating, I don't know, but maybe have access to the vehicle from that property? Maybe have some other, I don't know. Yeah,
Giovanna, that's a great question, a great thought. Ideally, when you have an operation like this, even though we believe the suspect is not armed, you want to take the normal citizenry, the normal residents, take them out of the problem, so they've asked them to leave voluntarily. And like you said, use the property as a vantage point, maybe to see inside the vehicle, to gain a fire position if possible. So, those are all things that are transpiring.
Okay.
Why would you not, since you have such access to this guy, we've seen them approach him through the passenger side multiple times, why would you not use a flashbang? It seems as if with all of the pepper spray, and here we come with the cat that you were talking about, but why would you not just toss one of those stun grenades in there? Would it potentially cause him more harm than necessary?
Yeah.
Because of the close quarters?
Thought. Yeah, great thought. You're inducing an explosives basically into a very small cabin of a vehicle, and that can cause the cabin to catch fire, which becomes another problem for the officers. And also, you can injure the suspect. And ultimately, and I know this is counterintuitive when I say it, but we're not here to hurt the suspect. We want to end this in a peaceful manner with the minimal amount of force being used.
Giovanna is going to step out, and Colleen Sullivan is going to join us as we are approaching Eyewitness News at 3 o'clock. I'm Philip Palmer, and we are watching Breaking News. We're talking with Bruce Thomas right now as the sheriff's deputies bring in the SWAT. With this situation, he's not really impacting the community at large. He's not hurt himself yet. And as you mentioned, you don't want to cause any harm. How long can you wait on something like this, and what would be the impetus to say, okay, enough is enough, as we see deputies approach right now?
Well, I think we've been on this for almost 2 hours now, and the fact that you just said it's not impacting the public per se, it's not in the main street, but you are seeing the deputies approach, and I fully believe that there is going to be a resolution on this, that they're going to have to go in, open up the door, drag this guy out, and take him into custody. At this point, I think they've waited long enough.
Well, we see the SWAT officers approach so that they could take something out of that sheriff's vehicle, and then now they are retreating again. So it is interesting. He turns around and watches. But what also is interesting is that he's monitoring them by looking in his rearview mirror that is there on the side of the driver's side. When they come from that other side, it's a lot harder for him to see what they're doing, because if you can just see, he's looking in that rearview mirror, and then when they start coming from the other side, he can't look everywhere at the same time. So it is interesting how they approach in different manners, never in the same way. And they do have the negotiator, when he's talking, he's always over there to our screen right.
Yeah, Philip, what I thought they were going to do was get a driver into that sheriff's patrol car and swap it out with the Bearcat, which gives them a tactical advantage to look down into the vehicle, a fire position sort of. But they may not be able to do that, but I thought that was what they were going to do.
Well, they you know what, Bruce? I mean, they still could, because I'm not quite sure from our on the ground shot where the Bearcat was, but they still have the possibility of moving the disabled sheriff's vehicle, which we've seen, the one that is perpendicular to the scene. That one's got a flat tire. They ran over the spike strip with the second vehicle we see there. So they could be moving it out. It does look as if, Bruce, they positioned that so that there's a better protection for the officers as they're mustering there, and they can approach a little more safely in that circumstance. But, I mean, they would have to move. You couldn't use the Bearcat with that vehicle still there, right? I mean, you can't see. There it is. Okay, there we see the Bearcat, but they can't get it until they move that other vehicle out of the way.
You know, yeah, as a supervisor, I'd be like, okay, it's got a flat tire. You know what? Let's just move it. Let's move it. Let's get the Bearcat in position. Let's put our plans into play here.
Yeah. Hi, Bruce. Thomas, Colleen Sullivan join you. As always, thank you for giving us your insight in on this one, because we've been watching this for quite some time, where that driver really does not look like he is in any rush to get out of that pickup truck. But again, you know, Philip said something a while back, about 45 minutes ago, and he said, you know, you had touched on it earlier, that they, you know, police use their canines as another tool of getting suspects to surrender. But because of all the pepper spray and tear gas and possibly whatever this person is also consuming, would a canine not be really an option because it might be too dangerous?
Great point. I won't use the word dangerous. I'll say more of a hindrance to the dog, as a distraction with the pepper ball and the tear gas in that vehicle. That may not be a viable option at this point. However, as the vehicle vents itself with the windows open, that now comes back into play. And as we've talked about before, canines are another tool. Yes, it looks pretty bad when a canine goes into a situation like that, and unfortunately may bite the suspect. But ultimately, it's a pain compliance type of bite. In other words, if you stop biting, the dog stops biting. Right. That's what they're trained for.
Yeah. And here comes the Bearcat.
Yeah, you can see a lot of activity.
Now he's approaching, and we'll see what happens with the somewhat disabled vehicle. They were able to move it, but it does have a flat tire there on the front, we think, because it did look as if he drove over the spike strip, and that it doesn't immediately cause a problem, but it will cause it to go flat, and it did look like it was going flat. So now they have further resources in place. And Bruce, I liked what you said, the vantage point of being able to look down on the vehicle. When they approached and they threw the tear gas into the passenger side, is there an officer, because we saw they had 4 or 5 officers coming up, is there one officer whose job is to kind of watch the interior to identify anything that might be in there that could be used as a weapon? Do you have individual assignments in that manner, so that you can try to get more information out of the cab of that vehicle?
Yes, great point. As a supervisor, I'm on scene. I am orchestrating what is going on. I am telling Deputy Smith, you're going to deploy the tear gas. Deputy Jones, you have cover of the vehicle. In other words, you are the one with less lethal or lethal covering our personnel as we do our plan. Yeah, it's all very orchestrated, very planned out, and they have a discussion before they take action.
Yeah, you can certainly see there's obviously a lot of choreographed pieces being put in position here to get this suspect to surrender. But again, when we see this sort of behavior of the suspect, yes, of course, they were involved in a pursuit, but now that they're sitting here, and they're not doing anything. It certainly, we have seen very active neighborhoods when there's a really active pursuit. We've seen them quite often lately. But then we see this gentleman who is sitting in his car, and he is going to get taken into custody, but it just seems like they're trying to figure out how to get him into custody without obviously injuring him or any officers. And what do you think? The Bearcat, it's going to go beside it. How is this going to give a better vantage point for the officers, since the officers seem to keep going right next to this vehicle with, a shield?
Yeah, ultimately what they're going to do is they're going to swap out the Bearcat for that patrol vehicle, which is at the rear of the pickup truck. The problem lies, you have a very narrow street with cars on both sides, and you have a very big vehicle. The Bearcat is a heavy-duty armored vehicle. And when they move that patrol car, does that now cause the suspect to put the vehicle back in gear and back up, endangering the officers? Or are they going to try to deploy a spike strip to the rear or something like that?
Well, I have not seen him inhaling recently until now, and he is, because we look at Air 7 looks away periodically, but for a minute I had hoped that maybe he had run out of whatever substance that he had been inhaling, but you saw just a moment ago that he did still have it. There's 2 Bearcats there now, Bruce. So even if they do pull him, that may be one reason why all of the patrol officers remove themselves, is because they are going to move this vehicle, and they do know he's going to probably take off backwards, but he's not going anywhere with those Bearcats. They had 2 of them. So he can't, even if he did run into some other people because he's going backwards, he can't really steer it, because we saw something, either a rod or maybe the spike strip that's wrapped around the wheels on the other side. We can't see it right now, but you could just see a slight bit of it on the ground there from the passenger side. So there is something that's disabled his vehicle as far as being able to steer or move. So he's not going anywhere. I mean, I'm surprised they had 2 Bearcats in this close quarters.
Yeah, but however, that is how our Special Enforcement Bureau rolls. It is a SWAT call-out, and so they will roll multiple Bearcats out. In addition to other resources, they may even roll out a command post if they believe it's going to be a protracted operation.
Doesn't it kind of seem like it is a protracted operation right now, Bruce? We've been on this for quite some time. We've been on air for about 2 hours. This started just before 1 o'clock. With driving recklessly, and obviously probably you could see there on the right-hand side the pursuit taking place, but the driver, Philip, correct me if I'm wrong, it didn't seem like they were taking really chancy driving, erratically, really, where we've seen erratic, where you're holding your breath and biting your nails.
That was the thing that has separated this chase from others. Yes, there were reckless moments, but they generally came from pit maneuvers. And I'm not saying that the pit maneuver was incorrect. I'm just saying that's when the driver was most reckless, was trying to get away from the pit. Like this scene right here that you're watching, he sat at that intersection for the duration of the light until he got the arrow. Then when he went forward, they pitted him, trying to get him to stop, and he just kept driving away. This is a moving example of what's happening right now, in the sense that he just won't do what they're telling him to do. He would stop at stop signs. He would drive through intersections reasonably, but he was not going to stop. And now here he is, and he just simply refuses to get out of the vehicle.
Yeah, the 3 pit maneuvers on this pickup truck, and this driver seems to be able to kind of get away. And then, Bruce, when you see, this driver's facing, so many charges at this point, but when the police get involved and then they do the pit maneuver, does he get charged for any sort of? I mean, they have to start trying to figure out what charges does this person actually face, because he was obviously driving erratically, and now you see him. We don't know what suspect. He could just have a nicotine, vape. I mean, people smoke like that as well. So we don't really know what what substance, if this driver is under any substance. But again, police are able to sort of ascertain exactly what's going on because they've been on this for so long.
Yeah. To your case in point, you do have the misdemeanor driving under the influence probably. You do have the pursuit, failure to yield to a pursuit. And then if we saw on the footage on the right, when they showed the earlier, when they did a pit maneuver, he would squeeze through the patrol cars and actually hit them. So in theory, you actually have assault with a deadly weapon on a police officer, a felony crime, a level 1 felony crime, which ultimately leads us to the higher degree of operations on this because you have a felony. No longer do you have just misdemeanors.
Well, and let's also not forget, to your point, Colleen, it's not just the vaping in the sense that we saw him huffing in a balloon. I mean, so whatever substance is in that canister for the chase, so there's some sort of illegal usage of a controlled substance, probably. So there's that as well. But that was an odd part of the chase that we were noticing when it was happening, was he's driving around reasonably, but he's got this monstrous balloon with him that he continued to fill up, inhale it, fill it up, inhale it. And then once he got to the place where he is now, he just ditched the balloon, and now he just breathes straight out of the canister that he has there. And it's a large canister, I've been told that sometimes people are using the nitrous oxide, for whipped cream and stuff like that.
Yeah.
This looks like something you use to fill balloons up. It's that kind of a large
like
container, which you can see it in the cab.
Right.
That he was really using it quite frequently at the outset of this standoff right here. But for the chase, he was using a balloon. He was driving around with a balloon.
Bruce, what do you have you come across any sort of what are you thinking he's inhaling?
I would go along with that. I was going to ask, and then I'll get back to your point. If Air 7 HD possibly can use that zoom little lens to see what he is exactly doing inside that cab. We're not going to give away any secrets. We're not.
We have a different helicopter apparently, Bruce, so we can't quite zoom in like we normally do. But you saw the canister just there again. You see that large canister that he breathed out of and then put it down.
Like a hookah.
Yeah, I'm going to go with what Colleen said, I believe, the nitrous oxide, or you might have said that, Philip. That's what he's doing, and he is ultimately high on that, and that's not going to change. And, that just compounds the problem because he is not in the right state of mind.
Well, and it's not changing because he continues to use. It would be one thing if it was an empty canister now, and he would just be sitting there and eventually begin to sober up, in a manner of speaking. Yes, I mean, at some point you do sober up, but if not, if he continues to huff, I mean, if he just continues to use it over and over, nothing changes. And here comes the Bearcat.